I mean, also, maybe I could just break the pencil with my mind if I bring enough energy. Like, I could maybe,
Honestly, I
you
actually
know?
believe that you could. Getting to a place where you take responsibility, you no longer feel like a victim to the system or to incompetence or to whatever. Hi, and welcome to Sunflower Philosophy Podcast. I'm DC,
I'm Juliana.
and we are both board certified hypnotists. And this is the second installment of our discussion about the book Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And today we're going to talk about chapter 3.
So we already talked about chapters 1 and 2 in a previous episode, and we're just continuing off of that. And for anyone who's new here, mostly what we're going to be doing is discussing our own experiences with the reading and things that stood out to us personally, things that we're really mostly interested in. Not necessarily going to be a comprehensive coverage of the entire chapter.
Yeah, right. We're not going to, you're right. We're not going to just summarize it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about like key things that were important to us. And so, is there anything that stands out for you or any place you'd like to start with this?
Well, I just want to start by mentioning the title of the chapter. I feel like that's a good place
Oh,
to start.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
Because
definitely.
each chapter does have a title. So for chapter 3, the title is Tuning into New Potentials in the Quantum. So what was really exciting for me is that I got the gist that this chapter was going to be more about the experiential aspect of I was hoping that it would end with a meditation exercise, something that I can do to
Right.
like practice and get into experiencing the principles of what he's been talking about in terms of like accessing the present moment and manifesting new things in your life, creating a new reality for yourself. I'm like, yeah, I want to see what I can do with that. I want to experience it. So I was really excited about getting into an actual exercise. But first, there's a lot of talk about like it just explaining kind of quantum physics and brain waves and
Right.
stuff.
And,
Yeah.
I know you and I have even watched a quantum physicist talk about quantum physics.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, I get it, but I don't. Like, it's hard to wrap your head around. And I don't mean like I don't believe it. I totally believe it. Based on my own previous experiences and stuff like that. I believe what they're saying about this stuff, but like the comprehension of it, sometimes I'm like, wait.
You mean like with the really specific, like what the like the wave function and the what does
Yeah.
that even
Yeah.
stand for? What does that mean?
Right, the particle,
Which,
the wave, all that. And I don't,
yeah, to be fair, he doesn't get into like all that
no, he doesn't go into
much
tremendous detail,
detail
but he does.
in this.
But he kind of does. Not where it's too scientific, where you can't get it. But I did really like the way he was talking about like how just like the, I guess, is it the particle or the electron or whatever, just like that, if you remove your attention from something, it goes away, right? So in other words, it's the observation of something that makes it real, right? Is that what is
That
it?
seems like the gist of
Not just what he's saying,
what
but
he's
even
saying.
quantum physicists
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
I think there might be a quote I have written down actually about that. Okay. Oh yeah, I think it's the first one I wrote down actually. It says this is when he's explaining about experiments relating to quantum physics when it comes to observing electrons and trying to pin down like where they're going to be in any given moment, and this idea that electrons don't have a necessarily like they only have a specific location, a quantifiable existence when they're being observed.
Right.
It's kind of the idea that I was getting from this. And so this quote says, the electrons exist simultaneously in an infinite number of possibilities or probabilities. It is only when an observer focuses his or her attention and looks for something material that the invisible field of energy and information collapses into a particle we know as the electron. This is called collapsing the wave function or a quantum event. So it's the idea that there's not a set version of reality until someone observes reality,
Right.
and then it becomes
I have the same
concrete.
I have the same thing underlined in the physical copy
Yeah.
of the book here, and then the next part says, that is called collapsing the wave function or a quantum event. But as soon as the observer looks away, no longer observing the electron and taking his or her mind off the subatomic matter, it disappears back into energy. The physical matter, the electron, cannot exist until we observe it, give it our attention. And then longer we're no longer putting our attention on it, it turns back into energy. And so I believe someplace he also just basically says that's, take your attention off, you know, um, your pain or your lack of a relationship or whatever it
Or just
is,
something that you don't
something that you
like.
don't like, right? Take your attention off it. And like this is not the first time I've heard this. Abraham Hicks talks about it and all that kind of stuff. And um, Neville Goddard says very similar things to the things I've read in this chapter, for example. But you know, Abraham Hicks doesn't talk about the electrons and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of, I like having
Mhm.
some other perspective and some background, scientifically and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the same kind of phenomenon, but explored in a different way, on a different level is what it feels like, I guess. And it's really interesting to, I mean, listen, I'm not a quantum physicist, I'm not a scientist. I don't know how um people are applying this in the scientific field and what this means for scientific development. But when you take this information as something that you can use in your day-to-day life, it does lend itself to this idea that we're exploring in this book of entering this like realm of reality where time and space aren't what they seem to
Nothing
be.
exists. Basically,
Nothing exists until and then tapping into the infinite possibilities.
yeah, now he did touch on, not touch on, he talked a lot about in the second chapter about like nobody and nothing existing and all
Mhm.
that. And he also touches on it again in this chapter, like getting
Yeah.
yourself in that place. And I I wonder, maybe I don't know if I am putting reading too much into it or I'm being too literal, but there was part of me that was wondering, is it necessary to get to that point to yeah, I have mixed yeah,
To
I've
get
mixed experience with this.
When you say to get to that point, do you mean to, like, experience reality as if you're in the quantum realm? Like, to get to the
To
point where
experience
you are
nothing, like to be
experiencing
awareness.
nothing?
I guess
Like,
like
if it's necessary to be in that, like, kinda like the mystical experience he described for himself in the beginning of the book, where he's, like, he enters into this, like, other like, this void, kind of, almost? You mean, like, is it necessary to, like, get to the point where you're, like, that you're just awareness?
right. And I guess the reason I say that is from past experiences for myself. Um while I from an experience that I had, as you know about it, and I could share it in another episode, but like I was for a period of time living very much in the present moment almost all the time. I had moments where I wasn't, but like I was doing it effortlessly because of experiences that I had. I was just very, very present and I felt very at one with everything and everyone. And I felt a connection and love for everything and everyone, which is normally not like me, as you know. But um yeah, but like so I guess what I'm saying is I was able to be, like, in the present moment while I was still aware of people and things and matter and whatever. I wasn't in, like, a void or anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I would say, like, I don't think anything is I don't think I don't feel like there's any one way to do it. I don't think there's
Well,
any
I
one way
think
to
that's my
be.
point.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to creating a new reality for yourself, I don't think you have to be, like, in this deep, deep, like, quantum state all the time to create it, because even with the example of, um, that he gives in this chapter later on, the specific story of his son wanting
Yeah, I
to
do
create
wanna
a new
talk about
job
that.
for
Yeah, yeah,
himself,
yeah.
I feel like, I mean, we don't hear, about the son's, like, experience with meditating or everything, but it doesn't seem like there was no he didn't talk about his son like entering the quantum realm and immediately creating this new opportunity. It was like a process.
If I remember correctly, I don't even think from what he said, the advice he gave his son was first go into the void and then do this process. I don't like he didn't
No.
the way he wrote it in the book, he did not approach it that way. So I guess what I'm saying is I think if someone, has like read this or is trying this and they feel like they first need to experience the void and if you're having difficulty with it, you might not need to experience that void in order to be in the present moment and to do the process that he's
Yeah,
presenting
I
here.
I do almost wonder if that is maybe too literal of an interpretation as
Right.
well, because I feel like while it's possible to experience that state based on other people's reported experiences, it also seems like for a lot of people when they're meditating, th- they might have a one-off mystical experience here or there. Maybe some people get to a point where they're constantly having them, but it's more about approaching that like with it's more about the intention, approaching that, just bringing yourself into the present moment with yourself and allowing something to happen if it's going to happen, but not necessarily always like having this grand
Yeah, I mean,
like
I mean, I tend to be kind of literal. So, like,
yeah.
if you tell me I have to go into avoiding, experiencing nothingness and nobody and this and that, okay, that's what I am going to do. You know what I
You
mean? Like,
know,
that's
what might be helpful for us because we are hypnotists, so it's kind of like in hypnosis. Well, this is how I would approach it based on what we've read. How I would approach it is imagine like you're going into a hypnosis, and just like you would ask a client to imagine something in hypnosis,
imagine
you
it
imagine
instead
it.
of right, right, right. For me, I think it's always the quieting of the mind, right? And as you know, I have a very, very busy mind, and and my human design, it confirmed that, like something I knew my whole life. So my mind was always so busy that when I was younger, I used to think, am I crazy? Like, does everyone's mind go like this? And a lot of people's minds do. So it's not just me, but I used to think like I must be crazy. Like I can't stop it. You know what I mean? So for somebody like me, imagining the void, you're so right as hypnotists, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You get people to imagine and pretend, and that gets them into the hypnotic
the
state.
state because what you're doing is you're changing your brain waves. You're changing
Right.
your. I mean, when he's talking about the experiments that they do in like earlier chapters, and in this one, I think he talks about measuring the brain waves of people when they're in meditation and the coherence, right, and stuff like that. But he doesn't say that everyone in those experiences necessarily had the same kind of experience, right?
Yeah.
But they were meditating and I have to assume that regardless of whether they had some grand mystical experience or they just were sitting in silence with themselves and repeatedly bringing themselves back to the present moment, like either way, I have to imagine that the results that they had were the more important part.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100%. It's all about the results, and in this case, it's about a lot of times it is about the journey, but for this case, it doesn't matter if your journey is different than someone else. It's like how do you
Y-
get there? And and I mean, again, I already know that from my own experience, but um I'm still like, yeah, duh. Imagine the void, pretend the void. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's because yeah, that'll get me there. That'll get me there because then it also gives my busy mind something to do. I'm pretending I'm in the void. I could totally do that. I can absolutely do that.
And I feel like an important part of that
I'm
as
too
well
literal.
is meeting the material where you're at from your perspective. How can this be useful to you? And and giving yourself the agency and the um sort of uh permission to do things in your way. Like
Yes.
and to trust that
Yes.
like your way doesn't have to look and feel exactly like, someone else
Yes.
no matter how established as a professional they are, right?
Yes. Yes.
I feel really I feel really passionate about that concept because I feel like that's how I function. It's usually I'm looking at things from my own perspective where I'm very aware that I'm taking bits and pieces and ingredients of what someone else is saying and then I'm seeing how they make sense for me in my experience. And also, there's also the idea that you might the more that we delve into this and practice this, maybe you'll have an experience that shifts how you meditate and shifts how you experience that kind of state. But like, just start from where you're at, you know?
Right,
That's
right.
kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, it really is true, and that's, for so for anyone who's as literal as I am, yeah, Juliana's got good advice. Start where you're at. And also, yeah, of course, pretend yourself into it. I know this.
Yeah.
I know this, but it's me. I'm like, okay, follow the steps, follow the, you know what I mean? So, but I did take note again of the fact that when he gave his son the advice, he didn't say, okay, first go into the void, whatever. We could talk about, do you want to talk about,
Well,
um,
there's something else I want to say based on
yeah,
what you're
go.
saying,
Yeah, go ahead.
because we're talking about pretending and imagining. There is a quote literally from, this is going back to chapter 1, I think, but about something that I've heard in many other places as well. I'm sure a lot of people listening have heard before as well. The idea that your brain does not differentiate between imagination and reality. So
Oh,
if you're imagining something, and the more vividly you imagine it, the more you step into it, it's not really different than reality. It's real. Like, your imagination is real.
100%. And
Yeah.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I think that was in chapter 2 and it wasn't one of the things that we ended up talking about, but that is really important for everyone to realize. And I hear more and more people talking about it, so I think it's out there more.
Hmm.
But yes, your body, when you are reliving or projecting into the future an experience, your body does not know that it's real. So hashing
Or
over
it doesn't know that
d- d-
it's in your head or
doesn't know that
imagining
it's
it.
not, what did I say?
It doesn't know that it's real.
Doesn't know that it's not real.
It interprets it as real.
Yes,
It might as well be real. Yeah.
that's what I meant. I meant to say it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, misspoke. Yes, your body thinks that it's a real experience. It doesn't matter that you're not having the experience now. So if you keep going over and over old experiences that were, you know, unhealthy or unwanted or what have you, and you keep going over and over again, to your body, it's like you're going through it again. It's like it's happening now. So I think that's like a really important thing for people to know because listen, a lot of us, guilty as charged, right? I mean, I'm so much better than I ever used to be. But like before I realized that, I never thought twice about going over and over in my mind, oh, this situation, that situation, or this trauma or that trauma, and thinking and thinking and thinking. But my body didn't know that it wasn't real. So I was reliving it physically.
Well,
And, but I don't mind rehashing really good things because then I know my body feels really good.
yeah, and it's it's about training yourself into a new experience, because, if you're used to going back to certain ways of thinking, certain patterns and stuff like that, it's just going to be easy to default to that. But
Oh, yeah,
it's it's just engaging in the process of recognizing that, taking the step back, and deciding to put your focus somewhere else. And sometimes sometimes it feels a little bit harder than others. And there are so many methodologies out there
definitely.
nowadays, I feel, in like therapeutic practices and somatic practices that are centered around
Hypnosis.
processing things, removing old patterns and habits from the body. And so there's a lot more emphasis, I feel, at least more mainstream emphasis, on the idea that you can in fact shift these patterns and habits. And if it feels difficult, if it feels like you can't just choose in the moment to redirect your attention, there are practices and deliberate, and even professionals you can work with to like get yourself out of that. And so it's really interesting to see that become much more of a mainstream concept, like this idea of like, oh, you're not just, you're not just stuck, quote unquote, in something that happened to you, which I feel like used to be much more of I feel like it used to be much more of a mindset, is like, oh, you just, something happened to you and now there's just no
Yeah.
way forward.
Okay, so you know what? I know what you're talking about, I think, because I want, and I've thought that too. I'm like, well, people know now about how their mind affects their body, and people know that they're not stuck being a certain way because of past experience, or just growing up and thinking they're a certain way, because they can change their mindset. But I'm wondering, do we think it's more mainstream because we're in the world of hypnosis? We go to conventions and spend time with hypnotists, and the kinds of things that we read and follow are related to that. So I think there are a lot of people out there who don't realize that they don't have to settle and stick with all, like, the old programming.
I wonder if it's both. I wonder if it's both.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it is, actually. I just think that we are so immersed in it, and you feel like, oh, it's out there. People
Everyone
know this
knows.
now,
Yeah.
but you know what? They really don't know. I mean, well, when you think about it, in, like, our real life, right? Uh, Meaning, like, family and people close to us. How many people really know what hypnotism is and what hypnotists do? They really, really don't. And I mean, not everyone, obviously, but most of them really don't. And some of them just think it's like too weird or something, but really it should be like a mainstream thing, because it's like everyone can benefit from hypnotism. Everyone can reprogram. Everyone has programming that they did not choose. In fact, we did not choose most of our programming, and even as hypnotists, we work with each other all the time. But we all have so much programming from our childhood that, you know, you could see a hypnotist every week and still have some more things that you could work on and improve, because we all have so much like, I mean, like, when we work together, I'm always like, oh geez, what should I work on now, because there's so many things that your mindset can always improve.
Yes, and I feel like there's something to be said for getting to a place where you feel at peace with yourself. Like, I do think it's possible to get to a place where you're
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying I'm not at peace with myself. I'm very happy with myself, but I have this great tool at my fingertips, so I want to use it, and I love it too.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
also,
yeah.
and listen, we both know that every time we hypnotize each other, we always feel better afterwards. I mean,
Yeah, no.
we might be focusing on a specific thing, but in general, we always feel good.
Well, it's something that helps change feel much more approachable, easy, simple, and like low stress, as opposed to I feel like the what used to be my old paradigm, at least, of change is difficult
Mm,
and takes so long and feels so stressful. You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
It takes the stress out of that because it's something that is a relaxing experience the way that we use it. Yes. And I feel like this kind of bringing it back to the chapter that we're talking about, this kind of practice, this kind of meditative practice is employing the same kind of principles and
Absolutely. You're right. Getting into the certain brain states and brain waves, and yeah.
and just showing what's possible. The deeper that you go, the more relaxed you get, the more, and like, who's to say that hypnosis is not getting you into that quantum state, into that
Oh,
place, right?
definitely. Definitely.
And I feel like there's so much more, um I feel like I said this in in I think the last episode as well, but there's so much more, it feels so much more attainable to me now to get into these kinds of brain states that he's talking about, Joe Dispenza is talking about, because of my experience with hypnosis and my ability to learn to go into trance.
Right.
That I did have to learn. I did have to learn, and it's really similar to the process of going into meditation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, the more you go into trance deliberately, we all go into trance every day, multiple times without even realizing it. But the more often you deliberately go into trance, and you want to go into a deep trance to create lasting change, the better you get at going into trance. So it's like a muscle in a way, right? And
Mhm.
I would say, it's the same thing with meditation, because I mean, they're related. They're cousins
Yeah. And so, so, like, when he was
or
talking about the
siblings.
brain waves, when he was talking about like also brain coherence, I was thinking about how probably without speaking of it in those terms, that's really what hypnosis is working towards, and that's why
Absolutely.
it's similar, like, because what is this book about and what is hypnosis about? Both things are about changing your life, changing your identity, changing your reality, accessing new realities, you know? It's just different ways of thinking about it. But actually, I that does bring to mind, like, quantum, uh, what is it? QHHC or something, quantum
QHHT?
HHT, yeah, QHHT, which is like the really, like, that's like hypnosis, and then you go really deep. So if it's called quantum QHHT, I don't know enough about it, but I'm assuming, like, is it the same thing? Like, it's getting you into that quantum?
Yeah, Dolores Cannon
Yeah.
developed that.
I
Um,
don't know if the word quantum there is how much work that word is doing in terms of explaining the actual nature of what's happening there, but it feels like it's getting you into a deep, deep trance state, like what
yeah,
Dispenza is
you know
talking about.
what? It really is all the same.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that n- um, you could do this same thing through hypnosis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can get to the same state and the
I mean,
same,
it's basically the same thing.
yeah.
It's the same process. Um,
It's really self hypnosis.
yeah, exactly, exactly. One thing I wanted to also talk about is brain coherence. He talks about brain coherence, like, in coherence between, like, the brain waves and the heart waves, and, like, um, how, I guess, like, when you're living in survival mode, your waves are kind of all out of sync. Like, the energy in your brain, heart, whatever, it's just not at the same frequencies. But then when you're going into these deeper brain states, when you're connecting with your body, you're connecting your brain and your body, things are getting more coherent. You're kind of coming out of survival mode. One of the quotes he has here is, "Living by the hormones of stress causes our brainwaves to fire in a very disordered, incoherent pattern, which in turn means our bodies can't work efficiently because we are trying to control and predict everything in our lives." And so, I like that experience, that explanation of it, because when it's a good reminder that, like, whenever you're feeling, like, whenever I'm like, I like noticing when I'm feeling, like, incoherent, and having that language to describe it, so I can just think of it, instead of, like, getting really lost in whatever story I'm in terms of feeling so scattered and, like, I've got to control things, and, oh, why do I feel like, you know, um like, this stress or this anxiety, or, like, I've got to figure this thing out, you know what I mean? Instead of getting really caught up in trying to figure the thing out, I can sit back and say, "Oh, okay, I'm feeling this way because my brain waves are incoherent, right? That I need to get back to coherence and ground myself a little bit." So I'm thinking more in terms of the physiology, the biology, the like, mental, physical alignment, as
Hmm.
opposed to trying to, okay, if I just fix this thing out here, then it'll fix this in here.
Yes.
And because that's not really how it works, right? Sometimes you do something and you feel momentarily more satisfied, but then you get out of whack again. This
Right.
is a more permanent way of bringing yourself back,
Exactly. Fixing from the inside out.
training your body to be in coherence more often. And I feel like coherence in this case is what he's really just saying is at a feeling, being at a resting state, not being in survival mode,
Right, right. And
resetting your
I
system.
mean, well, you know that I've had this experience of the, survival mode over the past couple of years in with what's gone on with grandpa being, first having the stroke and then being diagnosed with glioblastoma and having to at first help him rehabilitate and then afterwards after the glioblastoma diagnosis arranging all this the care that he needs and so many times I was trying to control everything. I was trying to control everything and I found myself slipping out of the things I already knew. The things I already know about life and existence and how things work and quantum physics and the like, right?
Mhm.
I found myself slipping back into the 3D world and feeling like I needed to control things, feeling on edge all the time, feeling in that survival mode. And, even like it might be survival of, my father, for example, but like feeling that responsibility of getting everything in order and trying to control things from the outside instead of starting with the inside, instead of maintaining like the things that I already learned,
Mhm.
like instead of maintaining those,
Mhm.
I was just trying to control everything from the outside. And um so actually reading this book now is, I mean, I've been getting better and better because, okay, more care is arranged. I have more time to devote to myself, to our business and things like that, right? Um and I think, having this book right now is also really catapulting me back into the things that I already knew
Feeling more in control from
from the inside out.
yeah, the
Right.
inside out. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And in fact, taking responsibility for my
Mhm.
reality and how I create it with the energy that I am emitting and that I, am putting out there into the world. So now taking responsibility of it, like it feels more empowering again. It's responsibility for it. It feels more empowering again. And I'm just really happy that we're, like the book is just, I don't know. I love reminders and I
Mhm.
love hearing things that maybe I already know, but hearing them in, different words from a different perspective with different examples, with different stories. And I just love that. And so this is really reinforcing
Yeah.
what I already know and bringing me back. But I also think that, as part of my like life path and my, connection with everyone, including grandpa, right? Like these experiences, as trying as it was a lot of the time over the past couple of years, these experiences have also taught me so much.
Mhm.
And that helps me with clients, right? It helps
Mhm.
me teach other people because you can't like be like a complete enlightened guru sitting up on like the mountain and not remember what it's like to be in the 3D to be in the human realm and help each other, right? Or help people. It's like if it's, I'm not saying it's impossible,
Mhm.
right? But an example would be like someone who was born into extreme wealth and all they know is that world where, they're everything's taken care of for them. They don't have to do anything for themselves, and they never have to think about the kind of survival that people like nowadays think of. It's really hard for people in that situation to really have any clue about how challenging some people are have it. They really don't know. They really don't know. And I mean, some of them make it a point to find out, but some,
Yeah.
I'm not even saying they're being cold and uncaring. I'm saying they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm just, that's an example of like, if you don't have those experiences, it's really kind of difficult. Oh, all right, I know we're off track a little bit, but someone I used to work with was talked about her sister who is a therapist, and she said her sister is a mess, but she's a great therapist. So like in other words, she, because she was probably could relate from her own mess,
Mhm.
she could relate and she knew how to help her clients,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess my point is it's hard to not have these kinds of experience. Like I
Yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah, yeah.
feeling like I had these experiences over the past few years because like I was like ooh for a while
Mhm.
like oh I'm such a high vibe and what have you. But it's kind of like all right, I it was like okay, there's more you need to learn.
Yeah.
I needed to learn more so I could be, you know, be the hypnotist that I am
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
be the support that I am for clients.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, it adds a dimension to it also like sometimes when you're working with someone you need to meet them where they're at. It depends. People need different things, right? But I think
Yes.
sometimes you need to be able to meet people where they're at by and knowing where they're at is easier when you have been where they're
Right.
at.
Right. And it's not even like you have to go to where they're at, but
Yeah.
you have to understand where they're at so you can get them to a different place.
Yeah. Do you want to get more into the specific example of that Joe Dispenza talks about in his son in
We
this
can talk about
chapter.
his son, and there's also one more thing I want to talk about. It doesn't matter which order we talk about it in.
Okay, do you know if is it something that comes before
It
that
does
or?
come before it, but I don't know if it matters how we talk about it.
No, well, we can get into that first.
Okay. I loved I loved the little example of the experiment that was done with the chicks, the baby chicks.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so hopefully I can do it justice with my explanation of it instead of just reading the whole thing to you. But okay, so baby chicks naturally follow their mother around as soon as they're born, right? That's what they're
yeah.
basically
They
saying, right?
imprint.
Right, imprint, that's the word. They
Mhm.
imprint on their mother, and they follow the mother everywhere.
Mhm.
So before chicks were born, I forget who it was, the guy's name. He created like a little robot, and he made sure that this robot randomly it was a little robot that moved around in the area where they would put the chicks when they were born. So he made sure that tested it and made sure that the robot just moved randomly and basically covered like pretty much all of the little pen, let's call it,
Mhm.
that they would put the chicks in. So the robot was programmed to randomly cover the whole thing. When the chicks were born and they put the chicks in there, they imprinted on the robot that was moving around and they followed it everywhere,
Mhm.
right? So after they imprinted on the robot, they took the chicks out and they put them in like a pen next to the robot where, they could see the robot. I thought they were going to say, oh, and the chicks were still trying to follow the robot. I mean, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, they imprinted. No, the robot stayed on the side of his enclosure, its pen that was closest to the chicks. So the chicks imprinting, the chip's vibe, and the chick's attention to the robot affected the robot.
Yeah, their desire for the robot to be close to them
Yes,
caused the robot
right.
to be closer to them without
Just
the robot having the ability to like
to think.
think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
To
So
know that the chicks is like, oh yes, the chicks want me there. I'm gonna go there.
and everything is energy, right? And so
Mhm.
all of the components that make up the robot are energy. So they emit whatever, frequency they have, and the chicks are emitting their frequency of, imprinting like, oh, you know, robot, we want to follow you, but like we can see you, but we can't get to you kind of thing. I don't know what the chicks are thinking. You know what I mean? But
But they must have some intention.
no, right. Well, yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're
they have.
wanting to follow the robot.
Yeah.
The robot's getting that vibe from them, and the robot is staying on that is not going around the whole pen anymore. It's staying on the side of the enclosure that's closest to the chicks. So that blew my mind. I actually thought that was really, really cool because I mean, okay, people affecting people, chicks affecting chicks, but chicks affecting robot, like, oh my God, like that was really,
Yeah,
I thought
which
that was really cool.
it's like and I feel like the whole point of that story was to say, actually, I think he says if the chick's intention affects the robot, then what kind of intention of yours, like what kind of effect does that have? Imagine the possibilities. Imagine what you're impacting and what your ability to impact
Right.
the world around you is. And
Yeah. Yeah, I actually do have it here. If the intentions of baby chicks can influence the movements of a computerized robot, just imagine what you can do in drawing your future to you.
mhm. Speaking of drawing your future to you, I have a quote about that as well. Because he also talks about the distinction, because the chicks in this example are like drawing the robot to them. They're not going over and making the robot come to them, right? It's
Right.
being drawn to them. So
Exactly.
in this chapter, he talks a lot about the difference between like making things happen through forcing matter to change, like doing physical acts to the world to make it change around you, versus drawing experiences and drawing things and drawing change to you.
Right.
There's a quote here I want to read as well,
Okay,
which
good.
is, it will find you as you become the vortex to your future, it being like your desired future. So, in that way, you don't have to work to bring what you want to manifest to you, and you don't have to go anywhere to get it. That's changing matter with matter. You have to become pure consciousness, no body, no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time, and change your energy. The electromagnetic signal you are broadcasting, and then you will draw that future experience right to you, changing which is changing energy into matter. So instead of changing matter with matter, like, I'm picking up this pencil, say like I break the pencil, I'm changing matter with matter, matter being
Right.
my hands and the pencil. But if if I want to draw the experience of a broken pencil to me for some reason, I don't know, but I don't want to do it myself with my hands, then I could draw that experience to me. Perhaps the pencil, I don't know, gets crushed by the chair I'm sitting on or something. Like, I don't know. But you know what I mean? And that's a silly example. But
No, it's fine though.
yeah.
Yeah, but well, it's getting back to trying to control things
Yeah, yeah.
from the physical realm.
Now, in that example, I've like maybe the most efficient way to break the pencil is just to break it. But like if you want a really big shift in your life and your identity, and you can create the energy to bring that. I mean, also maybe I could just break the pencil with my mind if I bring enough energy. Like I could maybe,
Honestly, I
you
actually
know.
believe that you could.
But but the idea is if you want to say bring a new job into your life, as we'll see in the example that he gives with his son, then you could go through all this work, all this process to send out your resumes and, be calling people 24/7 and really put a lot of physical effort into it, and you might get it. But you could also draw the experience to you in drawing just that meeting, that moment that you need,
Hmm.
or the sequence of events that you need to find the perfect profession for you, perfect job for you, without putting quite so much emphasis on what do I have to do? What do I have to do? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's like, also, it keeps bringing to mind the magician card in tarot, right? The magician being the major arcana, the first major arcana card. I mean, the fool is technically the first, but the magician is number one, like it's the card that's labeled number one. And the magician archetype is the archetype of manifestation. I feel it's the magician using energy and
Yeah.
and the
Well,
magician
and
has
human just
all of the tools too. It has the pentacles, the cups, the pentacles being like earth and matter, I would say, the physical realm. Cups being like energy and emotion, like energy and motion, right? Wands being like spiritual energy, I would say. Like it's like and action as well, like action with intention, intentional action, I would say. And
aligned. I
this
feel
aligned
aligned
action.
action. Yeah.
And swords being like the mind,
Hmm.
being like the ideas, the thoughts, and it's kind of like the different dimensions of existence, right? And so the magician can bring all of those together to create his reality. So, yes, when you are creating your new reality, there is some interaction with matter and movement and acting on things involved, but you don't necessarily have to force things, try for things.
Exactly.
You will continue moving throughout your world, throughout your life, and it will align. And it's cool because I like to think of it as like becoming a magician, becoming magic.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I have, well, many times. Well, we're all drawing everything to us all the time,
Hmm.
right? This is about drawing a new experience to you.
Hmm.
I
Yes.
think in another podcast, I'd like to talk about some of my experiences that were drawing new experiences to me, but without my necessary intention.
Hmm.
Like I wasn't necessarily trying to draw them to me, but with my high vibe and my presence and stuff, I did. Whereas now we're talking about intentionally bringing specific
Yes.
manifestations toward you.
Yes.
And so this is a good time, I think, to talk about his son's. Uh,
Yes. Let's get into
yeah,
that.
his name is Jace, and yeah, and
He tells a story about how Jace called
yes,
him up after he had quit some kind of corporate job he had, and he'd been like just kind of surfing and doing his own thing. Seems like he had the you know, time and means to go travel a bit and just take some time to figure out what he wanted to do next. And then he called his dad up and he was saying, I'm starting to think about what I want to do next, what kind of job I want next, how I want to live the rest of my life, and I really want it to be different than what I had before. I really want something new. I really want something that just feels better than what I had before. And so then obviously, Joe Dispenza being who he is, he talks him through like this exercise that then becomes the exercise that we're meant to participate in at the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he tells his son to, he says, you have all this time, so you can spend time getting good with the present moment and really drawing into you what you really want in this new job. So let's talk about how to do that. And this is where we get into what the exercise involves as well. So he has him assign a letter to his manifestation. In this case, the letter J for
Because
job.
he wanted a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to like draw sort of like squiggly energy around the letter J, like write it down physically, like draw like the energy coming out of the letter J, like, the energy out of this job that he wants. And then he asked him to write down specific things about elements of this job that he wants to bring in. So like, for example, salary, like I want to make as much or more than I made before. I want to be able to travel all over the world while I'm working. I want to work with, people who are aligned with me, things like that. I forget exactly what
Yeah, it
Jason's
doesn't matter what the
specific ones
specifics were.
but he comes up with specifics of things he would like to experience in this new job. And then he has Joe has him list out the emotional experience that he wants to have, how he wants it to feel. So he's like, well, in this new job, I want to feel free. I want to feel, I don't know, inspired, let's say. I want to feel gratitude for every day that I have doing this job. I want to have fun, things like that. And to focus on that emotion as well. And then to bring those elements into a meditation and continue to strengthen the energy around that experience. And uh it turns out he doesn't like manifest it immediately. It's not like it immediately comes into his life. But around the time when he starts to sort of run out of money, his savings, and he's like, really getting to the point where it's like, okay, like, hey dad, like I'm kind of out of money. I need to figure something out. And then, Joe says to him, all right, well, now is the time to manifest the thing that you want. And so he instead of, just giving him money or whatever, he lets him go off and go on this trip with some friends that he had planned. And on this trip is where he meets with the experience that gives him
Yes.
his new job.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I think is some
He met a person, got into
who's
conversation,
like,
and
some big person in like the surfboarding industry.
Yeah, and
he's like surfing. So.
Yeah, he was really into surfing.
Yeah.
And then he meets somebody who's huge in the industry, where I think to the point where he knew who he was and recognized him even, and then had a conversation and then got his dream job from that guy.
Yeah.
Created the exact situation that he had been meditating on, focusing on, whatever you want to call it.
And it turns into like exactly what he had been meditating on, what he had said for himself that he wanted. And then this is the exercise that then he walks us through at the end of the chapter, where he basically tells us, the readers, to do the same thing. Pick an area, pick a thing that you want to create, assign a letter to it, write it down physically, like draw the letter, draw the energy around it, write down the things, specifics that you want to experience, write down the feelings you want to have. And then he has a whole meditation where you can either like go listen to it or you can do it yourself, like follow along with the book.
Yeah, that reminds me. When I was reading it, like the instructions, I was thinking, oh, maybe like I would rearrange it and reword a couple of things, but I could record this for you and me. So like
Yeah, actually I did. I just like recorded, I read it to myself into a recording.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's not a good one. I probably have to redo it. I don't mind meditating without a recording, but just to get used to the
steps,
specific steps that
that's the only reason I wanted to record it, is to remember the steps, because then I'll be like, okay, Oh, wait, what's the next step? Oh, let me look in the book, you know?
Yeah, and it's not that involved. I think it's
No, it's
something that you
not.
could really get into the flow of pretty
You
quickly.
absolutely
So,
could.
I
Like,
feel like I wouldn't always need the recording.
I wouldn't either,
Yeah,
and I
we could also do it as a hypnosis as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I was thinking of even just taking, like, even an index card and writing the steps down just to have them briefly, like,
have them there, yeah.
yeah, if I don't wanna record it for myself or something.
Yeah, and, I don't think I, like, I sort of did, like, sort of started doing this exercise, so I finished this chapter before you did, so I had more time with it, but I didn't really do it, like, I did, like I wrote down some stuff about something that I wanna create, but then I didn't really do the meditation, um I did like a separate meditation where I sort of tried to take the principles of it, but I wasn't focusing on a specific thing. I was just more focusing on like the physical aspects he talks about, which is like focusing on different parts of your body and then focusing on the space around your body. And then I started focusing on like the energy around my body as well. And I feel like one thing that's going to happen for me is when I'm doing these meditations, I'm probably going to start adding my own stuff in there, like whatever comes to me. Like for me, I started focusing the space around my body, so I started imagining like the energy around my body and the energetic field, and I could like feel it. And but then I want to uh maybe imagine that energy doing something, like coming to me, like whatever. Like I feel like I'm going to do my own thing with it. Like I feel like I'm gonna
Yeah,
kind of make up my own.
I get it, because last night, I finished reading the book yesterday, and then last night when I was going to sleep, I just started thinking about something that I really, really want, and I started really getting the emotion and the energy up around it, and it felt like it's done, it's real. It felt really, really good, and I kept it going for a while. And it's not that I've never done these things before, but I'm not gonna lie, um, maybe that's why I like hypnosis, because it's more of a shortcut, but I tend to not stick with it. Like, I'll imagine one thing and bring up the emotions of it, but I won't stick with it for a long period of time, and I'll pick a new thing, and I'll just move on. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm,
and I'm not saying that can't even work, because I have had experiences where unintentionally, like, I'm my vibe is so high that something shows up within minutes of my saying it or something, right? Or thinking it. But when it comes to wanting to manifest a situation or something like that, um, and being intentional about it, I feel like when I'm being intentional about it, I need to be more um consistent with it
mm,
and stick with it longer. Like it took his son. Maybe it didn't manifest until the son was ready for it to, till he ran out of money. Maybe that's the reason, or
mhm.
maybe the son needed time to get into get into the real frequency of it. But whatever it is,
And I think Joe also says, don't one of the things he says when you're getting into specifics is not thinking about timing.
right? Yes, he
Because he does
does. He
say
does.
you need to let it take as long as it's gonna take,
Yes,
So there is something there
yes.
about timing.
And that's why even last night when I was doing it, I'm like, yeah, okay. I just know this is done. I don't know when. I don't know how.
Just
It's
because it's
fine.
done doesn't mean like you're gonna experience it right now in linear time
Exactly.
because there might be a more optimal
It's done in the
moment.
non-physical realm.
Like, I know that one day I'm gonna have my, like a pet of my own that is very special to me, and I know that that's happening, but if one were to walk into my house right now, would this be the optimal moment
No,
necessarily?
right, right,
Maybe, maybe not, right? And if it happened right now, maybe it is, but
right.
if it happened right now, maybe it also isn't, you know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
like, if it's not happening right now, maybe it's not the right time, but also, I don't need to know when the right time is. The right time could be, like, 2 minutes from
Yeah.
now, right?
You know what's interesting? I just off the top of my head when you were mentioning that about the pets, I just realized, like, I know a number of people whose pets just came to them
Mhm.
and the timing was right for various reasons,
Yeah.
different reasons in their individual lives, but that is pretty cool. So, I think also that's just a good vibe and expectation for you to have, is that the right pet is going to come to you in whatever way, shape, or form, or how, it doesn't matter, and when doesn't matter. It'll be the right pet at the right time.
And that's also something is even if it doesn't feel like the right time, if something comes in, the radical acceptance of if this is happening right now, it is the right time. I
That's
don't have to know
that's true too.
why. I don't have to understand why.
That's true. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, and that leads me back around to something that I had thought of when you were talking about, like, way back in the middle maybe of this episode, I don't know, wherever you were talking about, this taking responsibility, getting back to feeling like you can take responsibility for your experience, right?
Right.
And it made me, I kept thinking the words radical responsibility because I guess it feels like it would be, maybe one day it won't feel radical,
Oh,
but it
somebody
feels radical.
I feel like somebody uses that term. And it might not even be anyone that you listen to and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Radical response. Who said somebody says that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh. Oh my is it Greg Braden? I don't want to misquote anybody,
That
but
would be funny because he's the one who did the forward for this book.
or could it be Bashar? Um oh, now I want to know who and maybe radical isn't the exact word, but it's that sentiment of, like yeah. Or maybe I'm just misremembering completely, but it
No, but I when I was like, and I had it in my head, I had this feeling like I've either heard it from someone before or it's coming
or
from
you're
someone else.
channeling
Like,
it from somebody.
yeah, I don't know. But I kept like feeling like radical responsibility kept coming to mind, and I feel like that's what this is about. The idea that at the end of the day, if you can taking responsibility, I feel like sometimes there's resistance in myself or maybe just in general in society. There's resistance to taking responsibility for things because I think sometimes it can feel like blame because I feel like a lot of the times the way that we were taught to experience responsibility is are you comfy?
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm just
We have a blanket because it's like
it's
freezing
chilly
down
in
here.
here. Yeah.
Want to make sure that I'm not hogging it.
No, no,
Um,
no, no, I'm fine. I'm
but
just rearranging.
like radical responsibility can feel difficult because if responsibility feels like blame, if we were taught to experience responsibility as this is my fault and I'm bad and I'm wrong and and I'm taking responsibility means that I'm shaming myself, right? If that's what we're taught for responsibility to feel like, then we're not going to want to take responsibility for things. We're going to see the idea of having to take responsibility for things as an indictment of ourselves instead of what it is in this case, which is empowerment, which is I take responsibility in the sense that I give myself the power to have some kind of influence and say over the situation, to
Yes.
say that my my intention matters, my actions, my existence matters in this case and makes a difference in the way that I want it to. And that's empowering. That feels good. It feels really good. And I think you even said to me that you had a moment recently where you like took a step back from something and thought, I take responsibility from this. And you were surprised that it felt really
It felt
good.
immediately. I felt a visceral difference in my body and my mood, and I can't remember what it was, but something didn't go right. I mean, it could have been something related to like the care for grandpa, something like that. Something didn't turn out right or didn't go my way, and I was like, you know what? I take responsibility for this because I know that my thoughts and feelings and vibe around this situation have been low and negative and you know uh low expectations and negative thoughts about people's you know competence and all that kind of you know what I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
multiple feelings, I'm human.
And also
And
probably feeling like this person could just get it together, then this would be fine. Or
yes, yeah,
if
or,
that
why
thing
isn't
could
this
work
person
out, or
getting back to me? And, or why can't they?
yeah,
Yeah, I
all
mean,
these things.
right. And I mean, I even had, something related to the care this morning that I could have reacted that way to.
Hmm.
And I mean, I questioned it like, oh, this shouldn't this have been done? But I didn't get myself caught up in it. I didn't let it lower my vibe and all this kind of stuff. So, but yes, that not too long ago, in the past couple of weeks, I just was like, you know what? I take responsibility for this,
It's just
and
like,
and I
heck it, why not?
and I
And
really felt a visceral difference and feeling in my body and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about because I've definitely had the same experience. I mean, I can't think of like a specific incident, but like I know the experience
yeah,
of getting to a place where I'm just like, I'm just gonna take responsibility for that. Like, whatever, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop thinking of this as something that's outside of myself that I'm helpless to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Like, yeah, like feeling like the victim, um, and getting to a place where you take responsibility, you no longer feel like a victim to the system or to incompetence or to whatever, you
Right.
know?
And honestly, that's so important to me because I don't want to feel like I'm at
Exactly.
the mercy of anyone, especially not people I view as at the very least incompetent, if not worse. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
Forces that I view as outside of myself that I view as having detrimental intentions or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to feel at the mercy of
No,
that.
not at all.
And so if I take responsibility for myself, my situation, my reality, I don't have to feel that way.
Exactly.
And I and it's freeing. And then that's when you feel like you're not, you know, I don't know, a victim to a system outside of your control, something
Right.
that's bigger than you.
Now, I will say, it's not necessarily quick and easy to always
Right.
to
Yes.
always think that way and respond that way
Yeah.
because of our programming, right? I mean, I do want to say to people like, okay, taking responsibility for stuff is can be empowering and freeing. But I also want you to know it is not your fault because you're
Right. Yeah.
programmed to feel like a victim. Now, I mean you exactly, but like in general, people are programmed to feel like victims, to think that they have no power, to think that it's all things happening to them instead of for them. Like we're programmed that way from we're programmed to think of ourselves as limited. I mean, like becoming supernatural. We're talking about limitlessness or
Mhm.
unlimited power.
Right.
And we're programmed to believe in our limitations. And it's nobody, well, sometimes I think it is some people's fault, but like, it's not your parents' fault because they were programmed that way. They didn't know any better.
It's yeah, well, it's like once I mean, if we wanna get into, like,
It's not your parents' fault.
big picture thinking, well, when you're taking responsibility, right, you're not blaming yourself, but you're also not blaming anyone else. You're just looking at the situation being like, "I'm just you know what? I'm just not going to feed into the narrative of I have no say in what happens next," kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so it's not it's not that there's never anyone with a negative intention out there or anyone who's trying to do this or that, but it's more like removing yourself from the equation of
Hmm.
that, right?
Yeah, right, right.
So that you're no longer telling the universe this person's intention has an effect on me, right? You're like my intention has an effect on
Right.
me. I'm I'm in the seat of power here.
I think like kind of like what I was getting at though is that like you might come to that realization and be like, oh yeah, that is empowering. And I do feel like
Mhm.
that. But also do not slam yourself for reverting back to
Yeah.
that like victimization feeling or whatever it is
Yeah, and
because it's your programming. It's going to take time and practice or hypnosis or whatever to it's going to take deliberate intentional awareness to change that programming.
yes, and I mean that's why like things like this book, right, are about opening yourself up to possibilities and then experimenting with it, trying it out, training yourself into this
Right.
sort of regular pattern of like
Right.
limitlessness.
I would say most people aren't going to just read the book and just because of all the great things it says, all of a sudden, like, boom, your programming's changed. No, that's why there are exercises in here. That's why there are hypnotists, that's why there are all sorts of programs and stuff to help you reprogram your brain.
Yeah. And also, this brings to mind something that maybe can be a topic for a whole other video, but just something that this brings up for me is when you're talking about not like blaming yourself for like being in certain like mindsets and things like that. Um while there's a lot in this book, and also just in general, a lot of like spiritual circles, like a lot of rhetoric around maintaining your vibe and always and feeling good and feeling, and it's not that there's nothing that's not important, but there is something to, I think sometimes people can get really caught up in, oh, if I'm not feeling amazing all the time, I'm doing it wrong. There's something wrong with me. And that in and of itself, I feel like is a program itself that can be
Yeah.
undone. Because there's also a, like I talked about, like radical responsibility, there's also radical acceptance for whatever you're experiencing in that moment. And this belief that you can maintain in yourself that no matter what you're feeling, it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't even mean that you're not going to get what you want. Like, say you're like manifesting something, you're wanting to create something in your life. I don't think feeling low sometimes has to get in the way of that. It's only if you believe that it does. And so that radical acceptance of what you feel in the moment also means that you're no longer resistant to what you feel in the moment. And that lack, because like resistance can cause something to persist. If you're not resisting what you're feeling in the moment, then it's not going to persist in the same way. You're going to experience it as the energy that it is moving through, as opposed to getting stuck, becoming who you are, right?
Right.
And that's something that sometimes I feel like might get lost when we're talking about like maintaining your vibe. You gotta feel like good emotions and things like that. Yes, having these practices where you're intentionally doing that and you're generating this energy is important, everything. But that doesn't mean that you then vilify any negative emotions that you
Right.
feel.
Right. But I do think that maybe that is that could be another whole
Whole
topic in
topic.
itself. I
Yeah, we
mean,
could talk about that.
maybe we want to wrap up this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's wrap this up. So we haven't done the exercise ourselves yet, so we're definitely gonna do that in between now and the next one, where we're gonna talk about chapter 4 and get into I think it's called blessing your energy centers, or blessing the energy centers. So we're gonna learn about that.
Blessing of the energy centers.
Oh,
Oh,
blessing
this
of
one
the
will be
energy.
interesting for me as also a human design coach,
Mm,
reader.
right.
I prefer to coach people and through
Human
their
design, if you
deconditioning.
don't know, involves
Energy
energy
centers.
centers,
Yes.
like the
Like
chakras, but
the sh-
there's like more, I think,
the
or they
yeah.
get into more.
I can explain that in another
Yeah.
video too, but yeah, two of the chakras actually split back in 1781. So we used to be seven-centered beings and now we are nine-centered beings. But so blessing of the energy centers, that could be really interesting for me. I might have a lot to say about that
Mm.
or not. We'll see.
But in between now and then, we will also work on the meditations and probably talk a bit about our experiences with that at the beginning of
Yes.
the next episode.
That sounds
So we
good.
have that to look forward to. Is there anything that you want to close out with about this chapter? About anything that we talked about?
No, I think I'm good.
I think I am too. Because part of me like wants to be like, oh, what are you going to, manifest? But I don't really want to talk about it. I want to.
No, I actually don't think, I mean, this could bring us into another topic, but I don't think talking about it is helpful.
No, not necessarily.
No,
At
no.
least it doesn't feel like it's the right move right now.
Right.
Yeah. Just kind of want
I'm
to
not sure I'm
experiment with
decided
it.
anyway,
Yeah,
so
I want to experiment with it for myself and see.
yeah, and I haven't necessarily decided yet what I'm gonna do, so
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll talk more about our experiences though with the meditations when we get to chapter 4. And with that being said, thanks for listening or watching this far. If you're interested in any of our services, you could check out sunflowerphilosophy.com. And you can also check out our tarot YouTube channel where I do pick a card readings and shorts. And we've got like the links to our Instagrams, and everything is in the description. And you can also email us with any questions at info@sunflowerphilosophy.com. Again, all in the description of wherever you are listening. Also, if you want to like, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, you can like rate the episode, comment, whatever you want to do. It would help us out greatly. We appreciate any interaction.
also, I do wanna say, if you have any suggestions for topics for us to discuss,
Oh
we're
yeah,
also I'd love input. I love t yeah,
that'd be great.
I'd love some input, yeah.
So thanks again for watching, and we will see you in another episode very soon.
Bye for now.